Hi, it's Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Coming to a blog post I want to share with you. Of course, review the latest in social media and technology. We get phones from all the major carriers, so be sure to subscribe to the ChrisVossShow.com email list, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel under Chris Voss. We have two phone comparisons we're doing today. One's going to be with the AT&T Samsung Galaxy S3 and one with the AT&T Sony Xperia Ion with the newly updated 4.0 Android update. Now, previously, when the Sony Xperia Ion first came out a few months ago, it only had Gingerbread version Android 3.7 that it had on it. It recently this week updated to 4.04, so we're updating a lot of our different reviews of it. It did add some speed to the device and some cool features, and we certainly like the way it operates now, much better than how it operated under Gingerbread. So watch for the reviews that we've done with the update on the Sony. And of course, we're pitting against one of the favorites of the Android community, the Samsung Galaxy S3. This is the US version. Okay, so let's take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S3 stats. It has a height of 5.38 inches, 2.78 in width, 0.34 inches in thickness, and in weight, 4.73 ounces. It comes usually with the Android operating system 4.0. I believe we have this upgraded to 4.04. It has a display size of 4.8 inches. The resolution is 1280 by 720 with 306 ppi HD Super AMOLED screen, 16 million plus colors, and it has internal storage of up to 16 gigabytes, expandable memory storage of up to 64 gigabytes with a micro SD card. Maximum RAM is 2 gigabytes in the device. Several other things we can go into on it. It has in back 8 megapixel camera, rear facing, of course 4 times digital zoom, 1080p. Front facing camera is 1.9 megapixels. It also has like S-beam, which basically if you have other devices that have S-beam, which is pretty much the Samsung Galaxy S3 line, you can take and share things across to your friends on those devices. And let's see, that's pretty much it on the rundown. Let's go to the Sony. The Sony is 5.2 inches in height, 2.7 in width, 0.04 in thickness, with a weight of 5.1 ounces. The talk time is 4 hours max, 350 hours max standby, 1900 milliamp battery. The LCD screen is a color TFT resolution 720 times 1280 pixels, 4.5 diagonal with 16 million colors, 24-bit. It originally comes with Android 2.3.7, as I mentioned, but it now has 4.04 on it. The processor is a 1.5 gigahertz Qualcomm Snapdragon S3 dual-core processor. The memory on it is 12 gigabytes of internal storage, while hardware 13.2 gigabytes of internal storage. Available user is 1 gigabyte. On it, it has a expandable memory where you can have up to 32 gigabytes with a micro SD card. And on the resolution on the camera, it has 12 plus megapixels on the camera on the back, which is pretty amazing. On the front, it has 1.3 megapixels resolution. Of course, on the back, it will do 1080p on video capture, and I believe the front also with the 1.3 megapixel. So that gives us the rundown of both devices by comparison. Both devices are pretty nice in their build and, of course, their operating system. Let's take a look at both of them. Now, they both have a thing where you can go through and, of course, swipe. And, of course, a lot of people like the Android stuff, the ability to customize widgets and all that good stuff. With the Samsung, though, you do have what's called an infinite swipe, where with the Sony, you have a finite swipe. Many people like the infinite swipe, where you don't have to constantly go back and all that good stuff. The Samsung has a whole lot of customization you can take and do to it. It has something called S-Voice, which is really nice. We like the S-Voice. Let's go ahead and see if we can activate the X-Voice and get that S-Voice and get that going. It's much like It's much like the Siri on the iOS, and it will listen to you and it will decide what to do. It will open apps, which is cool. It will also tweet stuff. It'll Facebook stuff. You can give it all sorts of commands. It operates just like Siri, and in my mind, it actually understands me much better than Siri does. So I actually like it a little bit better than Siri. Although Siri with the iOS 6 product and the new iPhone 5 does operate a little bit better for me, but still, it seems like Android's better at listening to me and understanding me. Maybe it's how I talk or something. I don't know. Anyway, both of them have similar drop-down notification menus. They both have the ability to add widgets and everything else. We do like this feature across the top of the notifications bar with the Samsung, where we can easily and quickly adjust stuff. Now you can of course add widgets on the Sony to take and do that. Both are great devices when it comes to just the way they basically operate, if you will, and going through, scrolling through stuff, all that good stuff. Let's take a look at the rest of the bodies on these devices. Now, at the top of the Samsung, we have a speaker, which basically is for calls. We have some sensors. We have a front-facing camera. We have a menu button, a home button, which is pressable, and a back button. What's interesting about the menu button and the back button is they tend to delight themselves, delight or unlight or turn off, if you will, when they're not used for a bit, and then they turn back on. So that's really great that they're sensory based, but they also don't stay lit up and run down your battery. What we have on the Sonys, we have a small speaker at the top, front-facing camera, menu, home, back button, and a search button. So there's that. On the backs of the devices, let's take a look. On the Sony Galaxy S3, we really like the camera on it. We have mounted a third-party magnet to it that's glued on, so that we can add on like different lenses and things of that nature to it. So there's a normal pretty looking camera under there. We have the LED flash. Of course, this is probably a LED lamp is probably the better way to put it. Small speaker on the back. We're not excited about the small speaker, but it seems to work okay. On the Sony, we've got the camera lens, we've got the flash lamp, we've got a very small speaker that we're not excited about. The sound on the Sony sometimes really struggles with calls and stuff like that. So it's a good phone, but it's really hard, especially if you lay it down on its back, because it's going to block that speaker, and it doesn't seem to have a lot of amplified sound to it. So the Galaxy does pretty good. So we have a pull-off back on the Samsung, and usually it's once you pull off in this. And as you can see here, you've got a removable battery if you want to take and do that, your SIM card, and the place for the expandable memory micro SD card to go in. On the top of the Sony, we have your SIM card here, and then we have a expandable memory for your micro SD card that you can take and put in there. So that's the rundown of both the two devices, front and back. Okay, so here's the bottom of both devices. You can see we have a sync charging port. We have a small microphone hole, and there's a small microphone hole over here on the bottom of the Sony. Across the top of both devices, what we have is a small microphone hole. We have the pull-off area for the back, earphone jack, and also an earphone jack on the Sony. What's really interesting about this Sony is the center earphone jack is kind of a cool place to have it. If you're left or right-handed, it won't get in your way. Okay, so on the right side of the Samsung Galaxy S3, we have just a small power button. We also have on the right side of the Sony, we have a camera shutter button. We have the small rocker up and down button, a power button right here. Then flipping this over, we have a volume rocker up and down on the Samsung. On the Sony, we have a pull-out, pop-out piece. One of these plugs is for USB charging and syncing right here. This one is the HDMI TV output, which is really cool. If you have the cable, you can now put this to your HDMI TV. It's a mini HDMI port. Works very well, and of course it has the really cool sort of iPad experience on your TV. Okay, so let's look at some tests that we did with both these devices. And what we're going to do first is we're going to look at the speed test. Now, the speed test that we're going to be looking at is from the speed test log. So those of you on the YouTube who go your Wi-Fi is still active when you're showing that us, it doesn't matter. This is coming off the log. So you can see the speeds that we got on the Samsung coming off the speed test log, and you can see the speed test that we got with the new 4.04 update on the Sony. Let's take a look at a few other things that we can pull up here from our logs so that we don't have to keep running benchmarks. We're going to take a look at the Vellamo benchmarking app. And what the Vellamo does, it does an HTML5 benchmark and pulls the data. It also pulls from SunSpider, so you won't see us doing a SunSpider reference here. 1647 on the Samsung against 1401 on the Sony. 577 on the metal rating against 387 on the Sony. So you can see how those broke down in their ratings there. Let's take a look at the AnTuTu benchmarks. And looking at the AnTuTu benchmarks, let's see if we can get those pulled up here. What you're going to see is the scores that we got on both devices. And I don't know why, but the AnTuTu benchmarking app always gives me problems with different devices at dropping down the detailed scores. I don't know what that's about, but it's pretty much on all my Androids have problems. 6558 on the Samsung Galaxy S3, 6781 actually on the Sony. So that's pretty interesting that their benchmarks came in higher on each of these devices. You can see the breakdowns of RAM, CPU, integer, all that sort of good stuff. Okay, so here you can see the Geekbench scores we're getting on both devices. We've got 1358 on the Samsung Galaxy S3, 911 on the Sony. Paging down, you can see they both have similar gigahertz on their devices, and of course a lot of stuff might be different. So let's take a look at integer performance. You can pause these at any time as we go down through the data, and of course this is just for your reference. Probably not need to look at the individual scores unless you really want to, but great thing about this app is you can follow along at home with most of these apps on your Android and determine if there's a better phone for you. Okay, so here we can see we're using the display tester app here. You can see on both devices how well the colors are coming out. From what I'm seeing live here, the color on the Galaxy S3 is much better, especially in the green segment. It's much more richer, darker, brighter, etc., etc. The green on the Sony in comparison looks a little washed out. The red, purples, and blues seem to hold together good. Definitely slightly much better on the Galaxy Samsung S3. Okay, so now here we can see how each device did on the, this is going to be the quadrant standard test, and the device, the Samsung Galaxy S3, did 4792 against the Sony, which did 3172 in a score, and of course you can see how the matchups went there. So now we can see the benchmark scores that we're getting. This is off the Passmark device, the Passmark benchmarking app. You can see the results we're going to be getting off of this. 1945 for the Samsung Galaxy S3 against 1928 on the Sony. Let's page down. On the CPU test, 49 actually, 45, 3992. On the disk test, 3637. And 2684 on the Sony, 2110 on the Samsung, and 1827 on the Sony, 1261 2D graphics tests on the Samsung, 1909 on the Sony, 742 3D on the S3, and 743 on the Sony. Okay, so here we're doing a GPS test on the each device. With the Samsung S3, it's coming in with 1920 in view, 13 GPS satellites in use, with an accuracy of 10 feet. With the Sony, it's coming in with 19 in view, 9 in use, and 13 in feet. Okay, so now we can see KFS benchmarks. Now what this does is this benchmarks different speeds of frames per second. On the Sony, we got 21.7 frames per second against 34.43 frames per second. Okay, so here we can see a test on both these devices. The Samsung did 3042 score on the AnTuTu 3D rating benchmark, where the Sony did 2065 on the AnTuTu 3D rating benchmark. Okay, so here you can see we're doing a test of thread running on both devices. On native threads, Samsung S3 came at 5193 against 3846 for the Sony. And in the Java threads, it did 188 on the Samsung Galaxy S3 against 138 on the AT&T and eBench scores. Okay, so here we can see this is the billion counter test that checks on how fast the device can count to a billion. You can process to a billion on the Samsung Galaxy S3 in 22.012 seconds and 31.129 seconds on the Sony. Alright, now this is an SQL test, and what it does is runs through different threads, tables, indexes, all that sort of good stuff. You can see here we're using the RL benchmark for this, and we ran a test. You can see how some of the inserts, selects, all that sort of stuff broke down as it tests the system. The Samsung came in with a score of 28.17 seconds, 72 for the Sony. Okay, so here we can now see the speed test that we did with the Galaxy S3. This is using the AT&T network. Like I said, we're not really trying to show the difference between the two networks, but we are trying to show the speed of the device. So you can see this here. This is running through the hosting through our iPad 3 using the Samsung S3 as a hotspot. Okay, so this is the speed test we did of the hotspot for the Sony. We were using the Sony as a hotspot, and then what we're doing is running it through an iPad and then doing speed tests using the Sony's hotspot. So you can see here the results and numbers that we got in the service from the Sony as a hotspot. Okay, so let's take a look at using the camera on the Galaxy S3. Now, the Galaxy S3 takes great pictures. You can see here that we have a camera switch on the right-hand side where you can switch between taking photos and taking videos. We have the ability to, of course, have a shutter button here, and down here we have our portfolio of photos. Up here you can choose between different modes of focus, macro, face detection. You can focus between using your flash on and off. You've got, of course, single shot burst mode, HDR, smile shot, beauty, panorama, all sorts of different things you can do there. You can, of course, pull the camera back to you, and then you have different settings. You'll find most of these settings in the Android system of different settings you can do, adjustments you can do in the resolution of the cameras, anti-shake, auto contrast, all this sort of good stuff, image quality. You have full ability to change the features as you like them and prefer them. So let's go ahead and click out of those. I'm just clicking over here because I'm bored. So let's take a look at the photos that we get, and we'll get an idea as to how well they come out. There's a long pause for some reason, though, when you first go into your photos. After that, the pause disappears, but it's kind of interesting. This is a low light shot that we took using a very darkened area, and of course the flash, you can see here the colors came out really well, and so did the details. It almost looks like we shot it in the light when it was completely dark, so it shoots very well that way. Let's go ahead and flip over. Here's video of the same scene that you can see, and as you can see here, the video with the light came out really well. Lit up the object in the dark, and so taking video at night is really good on the Galaxy S3. Let's see if we can't find some more of what we want to take and get to. Here's video of a floor video that I take and use. Now you can see here the colors are almost an accurate portrayal of my floor, very close. It takes great video. We usually use this as a color test to take and see how high the yellows, the blues, and greens. You can see here this is a photo of my floor, and this is more a darker color, which is more representation of what the camera or what my floor looks like. So it does take really good, accurate pictures, and the colors aren't too mess with. Of course, you can adjust them, customize them, and everything you want. We love the camera on the Samsung Galaxy S3. It's a great camera. Okay, so let's take a look at the camera on the Sony. It's got a great camera on it. It had 12 megapixels. Originally, when we reviewed this phone, we reviewed it against the iPhone 4S, and it came out really well in comparing with the phones with the 4S. Now, like all Android phones, you've got to switch over here. Of course, there's switches in different places in different Android phones, but they have some of the same features. You've got to switch between your camera and your video. You've got your shutter button here. You've got an area to get into your pictures. You've got different ways to control screens for scene recognition. You've also got different scenes you can take and do. You can control your iOS settings, you can see over here, and you can of course control your lamp settings for red eye reduction, fill flash, all that sort of good stuff. You also have the ability to control a lot of this stuff, the resolution you're using, etc., geotagging, saving, capturing method, all sorts of different ways that you can take and do to customize this menu. Same thing with when you go into video mode. You of course have the ability to change different scenes on video mode. You can use video camera or the front camera to record, all that good stuff. You can change your ISO. You can of course make it so you use the lamp or not. Camera wise, it came out with great photos for us. Here you can see a low light video that we're taking the lamp on the back of the video camera, and this is a completely dark situation that we're playing this or recording this video in, but in essence you can see here that it brightens up everything really well. It's got a great lamp to it, and takes really good color completely in the dark video, as you can see there. Here's some pictures of flash, and this is completely in the dark, so this is getting the colors in a flash. The lamp flash on it's really good. This first one we were moving the device around, so we didn't get a good, it had some trouble getting the focus before it hit it. This was a good hit with the focus where we kept it in one place. You can see here some really beautiful pictures that it came out with and was able to take. You can see here the detail on the road, see the rugged detail on the road, and the dig and the rock formations on the asphalt. So it came out really well with the pictures that we took. Great, beautiful pictures with this camera, and it's really hard to go wrong. So we love the camera on the Sony Xperia Ion 12 megapixel back camera. It's really nice. Now both devices I've really enjoyed. The Sony is very fun with the screen. You can plug it into an HD TV and it will broadcast pretty much the screen on the HD TV. And the sideways version looks very much like an iPad that's plugged into an HD TV. So it's a lot of fun, you know, with being able to plug into, you have to get your own HD cable and plug it into the side there. But you get a whole really cool menu of HD, and like I said, it does look like an iPad on AirPlay. Plugged into your HD TV, and you can watch movies and everything through the device, so I really like that. With the Samsung, you can find it at amzn.to. That's AT&T.com, and it's the Samsung Galaxy S3. You can also find at AT&T.com the Sony Xperia Ion with the new update 4.04. And we like it. It's got new beeps and sounds, and it's definitely a lot faster, a lot cleaner, much better operating system, and we're really happy with the new 4.04 update. So glad that garbage gingerbread is gone. So you can pick which phone works best for you and be able to decide for yourself. So be sure to check them out. Chris Voss tested, Chris Voss approved. Tell them Chris Voss sent you, of course. And on top of that, subscribe to our YouTube channel under Chris Voss. Check out the other videos we have of iPhone 5, Samsung Galaxy S3s, you name it, we got it. And subscribe to our show, the ChrisVossShow.com email channel. Thanks for coming by, the ChrisVossShow.com. Be sure to check back multiple times a day.